Hello everyone, welcome to the Daily Current Affair Analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy, 29th January 2026. Before getting into the discussion, please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you haven't, please do subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time updates from the Academy. Coming to the topics for today's discussion, the first topic is about the China's Antarctic framework. So recently the Chinese government brought a framework for their Antarctic ambitions, and this is currently under the review of the standing committee. So we will be discussing the key provisions of this bill and how this is going to fulfill the ambitions of China in the Antarctic. And the second article is regarding the cybercrime and the crisis of global governance. So we know that in the age of digitalization, one of the biggest concerns is nothing but the rising rate of the cyber crimes, right? And within the cybercrime, another major concern is there is no framework or treaty to deal with this cybercrime. That means we have certain multilateral and regional frameworks, but we do not have a universally accepted framework to deal with the cybercrime. And the next article is about the India-European Union Free Trade Agreement, the mother of all deals. So on 27th January, we have concluded the negotiations for the free trade agreement. And the fourth topic is about the financial burden of India's aging population. So recently, the Reserve Bank of India published a report which is talking about the uneven demographic dividend in different parts of the country. So we'll be discussing how it is going to affect the economy and what measures can be taken based on the recommendations of RBI. And finally, we'll be discussing the prelims focus. If all set, let's begin the discussion with the first article. How is China framing its Antarctic ambitions? The article is taken from The Hindu. So what is the news? So recently, the government of China proposed a law, that is the Antarctic Activities and Environmental Protection Law. This draft law is currently under the preview of the standing committee. So through this law, what is China aiming in the Antarctica? Let us discuss. So what is the proposal? So this draft law contains nearly 7 chapters and 57 articles. So the provisions and the norms of this law is applicable to the Chinese citizens and the Chinese organizations which are engaging in the Antarctic activities. And it is also applicable to the foreign entities which are organizing Antarctic activities from China, and also to the expedition teams which are departing from the Chinese ports. So to whom this norms are applicable? To the Chinese citizens and the Chinese organizations, and also to the foreign entities organizing the Antarctic research and activities from China, and also to the expedition teams and the expedition which are departing from the Chinese ports. And what are the key provisions? Regulation on scientific research, expeditions, tourism, fisheries, and shipping. It is also talking about peaceful use and environmental protection of the Antarctica ecosystem, which are aligning with the Antarctic Treaty of 1959. And this law also proposes a ban on military activities, including weapon testing, troop deployment, and combat operations near the Antarctic ecosystem. And talking about the mineral resource, there is a prohibition in the exploitation of the mineral resource as per the law, but it can be done in a limited way only for the scientific research. And this bill also proposes a mandatory environment impact assessment before the study or any other activities in the Antarctica. And throughout the activity, when the activities are going on, when the research works are going on, that time there should be a strict supervising mechanism. And after the mission or after the project in Antarctica, there should be a post-incident accountability study. That means, in case if there is any mistakes, or in case if there is any accident, there should be a framework as per the law to take the accountability and responsibility. And you can see that this bill also addresses governance gaps regarding tourism, waste management, and marine pollution in the Antarctica ecosystem. So, talking about the Chinese presence in the Antarctica. So the first Chinese expedition to the Antarctica was done in the year 1984, and after that, in the very next year, China became a consultative party to the Antarctica Treaty of 1959. And you can see that currently 5 research stations of China are active in Antarctica. They are Great Wall, Sangchong, Taishan, Kunlun, and Kinling. And you can see that 2 advanced polar icebreakers are also, Chinese icebreakers are also active in Antarctica. They are Shillong and Shillong 2. Talking about the framework, so how through this framework, how China is carrying its Antarctic ambitions. The first is focusing on science and climate research. So you can see that, through framing this law, the China is trying to understand the climate change, address problems like sea level rise and the polar atmospheric interactions. They are planning to study and understand all these phenomena. And it supports China's domestic climate and environmental planning. And the next framework is about the environmental protection. So the bill is emphasizing on sustainability and compliance with the treaty norms. So we can see that, there is a strict regulation in exploiting the minerals. At the same time, there is a prohibition in using, military, power near the Antarctic ecosystem. So all these provisions are there in the bill. So this bill is focusing on the environmental protection. And you can see that, the projects, it projects Antarctica as a global commons, not as a resource frontier. So you can see that, even though the China, they framed a draft law, China is not claiming any particular region within Antarctica. So the law is exclusively talking about conducting research activities and study. It is not talking about any political ambition of China explicitly. It is not talking about any political ambition of China in the Antarctica. And talking about the governance and rule shaping. So we can see that, now the China passed an Antarctica Act. So through that, they are becoming, they are making a shift from rule taker to rule shaper, within the framework of Antarctica Treaty. And domestic legislation strengthens its negotiation position in the international. So, China will get more trust, in the international scenario when there is a talk about Antarctica, because they have a framework regarding their ambition in the Antarctica. And the next is long-term strategic presence. So we can see that, advanced polar research capabilities in icebreaking, satellite navigation, and extreme environment engineering. So China is focusing on all these regions. So this will ensure, in long term, this will ensure a strategic presence of China in the Antarctica. And the next is strategic influence without making explicit territorial claims. So like I mentioned, the bill is talking only about the it is exclusively talking about the conducting research studies, other missions in the Antarctica and its ecosystem. It is not making any territorial claim explicitly. But always, when a state is doing all this, definitely there is a political intention. But explicitly, the act is not talking about all these things. Okay. And coming to the prelims practice question. Before that, we have a question. So, do we have any similar framework regarding Antarctica? Yes, we do. That is the India-Antarctica Act of 2022. So, in 2022, the Parliament passed the bill and it became an act. And under this act, we introduced the India-Antarctic Authority. So, this India-Antarctic Authority is responsible for conducting research and other activities in the Antarctica. And no ship, no person from or any other research team, so without the permission from this authority, can step into, from India they cannot step into Antarctica. So this authority, which is working under the Ministry of Earth Science. Okay, so this authority, the India Antarctic Authority, which is established under the India Antarctic Act of 2022, and this authority is working under the Ministry of Earth Science, and this authority is responsible for conducting missions, expeditions, and other research activities in the Antarctica continent. No person and no vessel and no research team from India cannot step into Antarctica without the permission from this authority. So we have a prelims question. The question is, with reference to India's research bases in Antarctica, consider the following stations: Maitri, Taishan, Dakshina Gangotri, and Himadri. How many of the above is or are not a research base of India in Antarctica? So the question is asking about which of the following is not, or is or are is not the research station of India in Antarctica. So we know that Maitri is a research station of Antarctica. Taishan, no, it will not come because it is a research station of China in Antarctica, right? And Dakshina Gangotri, yes. And Himadri is actually a research station, but not for studying Antarctica, but for studying the Arctic region. Okay, it is not for Antarctica, it is for the Arctic region. So the correct answers are Maitri and Dakshina Gangotri. So the correct answer will be option B, 2 only. So the Taishan belongs to China, and Himadri, the station is located in the nation of Norway, and you can see that it is focusing on Arctic studies, not the Antarctica. So the correct answer will be option B, 2 only. So with this, we will move to the next article. Cybercrime and the crisis of global governance. The article is taken from The Hindu. So we know that we are living in the age of digitalization, where every country, including India, is focusing more on digital economy and digital infrastructure. In such a situation, one of the biggest concerns for a state is nothing but the rising rate of cybercrime. Cybercrimes within national boundary and between national boundary, that is the cross-border cybercrimes in the form of attack on ransomware, data theft, data breach, and also state-sponsored or mega institutions sponsored hacking and espionage. These are the major concerns associated with the cross-border cybercrime. But the actual crisis in dealing with the cybercrime is nothing but the lack of global governance. So we do not have a universally accepted treaty or a framework to deal with the cybercrime. That is a major issue. Before that, what is mean by cybercrime? Cybercrime means crimes that are committed using in a computer or networks as tools or targets. That means they can be used as a tool for attacking another country or another system, or they can be the target. And what are the different types or the major types of cybercrime? Financial fraud, like cryptocurrency scam, ransomware attack on data, cyber espionage, attack on critical infrastructure like space and defense. All this comes under comes under the cybercrime. And like I mentioned, there is no universally accepted treaty to deal with the problem of cybercrime. Why? Because the cyberspace of a nation is very crucial for the security of the nation. So therefore, when a nation comes when it comes to in a position to take a decision regarding such a crucial space, then the nation has to give consideration for certain things. That is it privacy or security? Is it sovereignty or global cooperation? So we can see that if you take different countries of this world, the approach towards the cyberspace itself is very different. For example, the approach of the European Union and the USA is very different from the approach of the China and the Russia. The European Union and the USA, they are focusing more on open internet accessibility. At the same time, they have strong privacy norms. And the case of the China and the Russia is entirely different. They are focusing more on state-controlled cyberspace with cyber sovereignty. So the approach of different nation in the cyberspace itself is very different. And we can see that majority of the nations on this world which are in the path of development are not in, majority of them are not in a position to be a rule shaper. Most of them are rule takers. That is also a concern in bringing a common or a universally accepted treaty to deal with the cybercrime. And coming to the certain UN and international frameworks regarding the cybercrime or for the cyberspace, we have the UN open-ended working group, we have the UN group on governmental experts, and we have a multilateral treaty, that is the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime, which was concluded in 2003 in Budapest in Europe. And you can see that since it was framed and signed in the Europe, it had this framework or this convention had a European domination, and that is why many countries are not ready to accept this framework, including India. India is not a signatory to the Budapest Convention. And what is the core concern of India? Protecting the strategic autonomy. That means we are in the path of development. Okay, we cannot neglect, we cannot completely close the cyberspace. At the same time, we cannot completely open the cyberspace because of the security concerns. So we have to maintain a balance. We have to engage with the big companies. We have to engage with the strong cyber states, but at the same time, we cannot compromise our cyberspace. That is a concern for India. So we have to balance the security need. We have to protect our democratic values, and at the same time, we have to focus on our digital economy's growth. That is a core concern of India. So what India can do? Investing more in cyber diplomacy, and also engaging in technical negotiation with the different platforms, different institutions, and also with the various cyber states. Engaging at multiple levels simultaneously. That means we can see that fragmentation in the international scenario, one of the major reasons or challenges in bringing a universally accepted cyber treaty. Because we can see that the interest of the UN and the different regional forums will be entirely different. The interest between the regional forums and informal groupings will be entirely different. So India as a nation, India is not that much powerful. At the same time, we are not that much weak. We have a very good respected position at the international level, so we can use that position to engage at multiple levels simultaneously. That includes UN, regional forums, and also bilateral agreements for the cyber security. And at the same time, we can strengthen the domestic institutions like CERT and data protection framework. So we are focusing on DPDP bill, DPDP Act and all. So we can strengthen such frameworks to ensure more cyber security for India, and at the same time we can engage with the other strong cyber states and cyber institutions at the national and international level for better security, and at the same time we can manage a global cooperation with the in the field of cyber security. So these are the initiatives that we can take, and for that we have to invest more on cyber diplomacy and technical negotiation. So we need more experts to engage in the diplomacy, especially when it comes to cyberspace. Then only we can maintain a balance between the security and the global cooperation. So coming to the prelims focus, the question is, with reference to the cybercrime and global cyber governance, consider the following statements. Statement 1, cybercrime poses unique challenges to the national law enforcement because it is largely transnational in nature. Statement 2, it is a universally accepted and legally binding global treaty governing cybercrime. Statement 3, differences in national approach to the internet governance have contributed to the fragmentation in the global cyber norms. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So we can see that there is no universally accepted treaty for the fight against the cybercrime. That is one of the major challenges, right? So the statement 2 is incorrect. So if statement 2 is incorrect, then we will come to the answer, that is the option B, 1 and 3 only. Let's check. Yes, with this we will move to the next article. India and the European Union conclude talks on mother of all deals, ending negotiations that started in 2007. The article is taken from The Hindu. On 27th January of this year, the India and the European Union, the second and the fourth largest economies of the world, successfully completed the negotiation for the free trade agreement. So why this India-European Union free trade agreement is very special? Because we can see that this is the largest and most comprehensive free trade agreement that India have ever signed. And second, this is a result of a long-lasted negotiation. Actually, the negotiation for the free trade agreement between these two economies started in 2007, and due to the difference of opinion regarding agriculture and dairy sector, automobiles, intellectual property management and service, the conclusion was never reached, and there was a temporary halt in the discussion. And finally, in 2022, we revived the discussion with the European Union, and now we can see a largest and most comprehensive free trade agreement that India have ever signed till today. And this free trade agreement is also a success of Indian diplomacy, because we can see that one of the reasons the European Union agreed for this free trade agreement is nothing but the tension between the Europe and the America regarding the Greenland issue. So therefore, utilizing this right time for a successful initiative like free trade agreement with the European Union highlights the diplomatic success of India. And this free trade agreement supports the global diversification, supply chain diversification, European Union's de-risking from China. That means they also have to depend on China for manufactured goods. That can be addressed. And this will also support, the free trade agreement will be also supporting India's vision of export-led growth. And coming to the core features of the agreement, first we will go through the commitments of the European Union. Tariff elimination on 99.5% of India's export value. What the statement means? Imagine that India made 100 rupees through exporting to the European Union. Then from this 100 rupees, 99.5% of the amount will not be taxed. We are not talking about the number of products. We are talking about the value that means the export value that we generated through exporting to the European Union. So if we generated 100 rupees, then out of this 100 rupees, 99.5% of the value, that means money, will not be facing any tax. And 90.7% of the Indian exports will face only zero tax. That means there is no tax from the day one of the enforcement. And what are the commitments from India? Tariff concession on 97.5% of Europe's export value, immediate duty elimination on 49.6% of tariff lines, phased reduction over 5 to 10 years on sensitive items. So we can see that even though they have signed a comprehensive agreement, till even today, the India and the European Union are not that much open regarding their sensitive areas like dairy and strategic agriculture for India, beef industry, sugar industry, rice industry, milk powder, and ethanol for European Union. So the sensitive areas of the respective economies are respected and they are protected even after the agreement. But now India will be opening in different phases. We will be opening the sensitive areas. Both countries will be opening the sensitive areas for further collaboration. And what are the gains for India? So talking about the goods, we can see that major beneficiaries like the textiles, leather industry, marine products, gems and jewelries, toys, sport goods, and also furniture. So these industries will have only zero duty. And these industries are also labor intensive industry worth of nearly 2.87 lakh crore of export value. And talking about second benefit, India can enhance the competitiveness with other countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, and Turkey. So Vietnam, in the Southeast Asian country, is recently emerging as one of the important manufacturing hub as well as export hub. So we can cope with them. And services. So the European Union market access in 144 service subsectors. So Indian products or Indian professionals can reach the IT sector, business services, education related services in the European market. And what India concedes, the European Union will get expanded access in machinery and electrical equipment, automobile industry. That means only to the luxury segment. So we know that India in India we have our own domestic automobile industries, but these domestic automobile industries are not known for producing luxurious cars. But that is not the case of India. Mercedes, BMW, all this comes from the European Union. So we will be providing access for them to the luxury segments. That means the domestic manufacture, the domestic automobile industries will be protected, and pharmaceuticals, chemicals, aircraft, and high-end technology goods. All these areas, the European Union will be getting expanded access. Expected benefits for India: cheaper capital goods. So if they are investing in automobiles, if they are investing in machineries, then we are getting capital. Technology upgradation. Europe is much advanced in terms of science and technology, and also in terms of research and development. Integration into global value chain, and that is another benefit for India. Services opened by India. As of now, nearly services are allowed. That means they will be getting access. European Union will be getting access across 102 subsectors, service subsectors. And talking about the sensitive sectors, so how these two economies are going to manage the sensitive areas. So we can see that even after signing, even after concluding the free trade agreement, the sensitive areas of the two economies are protected. For example, in the case of India, the dairy sector and the strategic agriculture is protected, and in the case of Europe, the beef sector, the sugar sector, everything is protected. So in the coming days, how we are going to manage the sensitive sectors? In the case of automobiles, we will be providing concessions to the cars priced above 25 lakh. So we know that the European Union or the European continent is known for producing luxurious cars like the Mercedes-Benz, BMW and all. And in the case of India, the domestic producers are producing medium segment cars, which are not that much luxurious and which are not that much costly. So here the concession will be focusing. That means we can see a reduction of import duty, a drastic reduction of import duty from 110 to 10%. So this will be available to the luxurious cars, while at the same time, the domestic manufacturers will be protected, because the domestic manufacturers are known for medium segment cars, not luxurious. And here also, in the case of the luxurious cars also, we have another check, that is the quota based system. If the import is exceeding beyond a limit, then after that limit we will be imposing high tariff on the imports. So that is how we are planning to manage the automobile sector. And talking about the wine and spirits, so wine and spirits comes under the category of alcohol, which is considered as a thin good. So we can see that as of now, the duties got reduced from 150% to 20 to 30%. And here also we have a check, that is the quota system. So if the import is crossing a particular limit, then after that limit we will be imposing high tariff, reflecting India's, and this initiative is reflecting India's new strategy in the free trade agreement. How? The first is gradualism, adoption of gradualism. Instead of opening all the sectors of an economy in a single phase, we will be going phase by phase. For example, in the case of India, we are planning to open the sensitive areas in different phases in another 5 to 10 years, right? And calibration, that means focusing on different sectors. For example, service, automobiles, like that. So the free trade agreement is focusing on different sectors and avoiding shocks to the domestic sector. So we can see that at the same time, even though we are opening particular sectors of an economy, let's take the case of the automobiles. We are providing the concessions only to the luxurious cars, not to the medium segment cars. Because if we provide the concession to the medium segment cars, then the domestic manufacturers will be affected. So we are avoiding shock to the domestic industry. So these are the initiatives that we had taken to manage the sensitive sectors between these two economies. And strategic and geopolitical significance. So what is the significance of this free trade agreement? So this free trade agreement is bringing together nearly 2 billion people in a market, Europe and India. So India itself has nearly 1.4 billion people, and from the European, the rest of the people will come. So it is forming a market of nearly 2 billion people, and it reinforces rule-based trade order, India-UAE strategic partnership. So in the coming days, this will be strengthening the India-European Union strategic partnership. Signals India's evolution from a defensive trade posture to selective liberalization. Like I mentioned, we are applying the possibilities of gradualism, calibrations. All these principles are brought. So this is marking a shift in the India's free trade agreement strategy. But still there are challenges. Implementation capacity are still there. The American administration, even today, they can disrupt this free trade agreement. There is a possibility. And implementation challenges are there. MSME competitiveness. So we can see that, the European industries are much advanced than the Indian industries. And in the case of Indian industry, we have, in the recent times, the government is focusing more on the MSMEs. But if we are opening an economy, with a superpower like the European Union, then there is a possibility that may affect the emerging startups. And the regulatory convergence and the standard compliance. So we can see that, we are talking about the duty-free export of nearly 90% of the Indian products to the European Union. But at the same time, there are other hurdles like the standards, bureaucratic delays may be there. So such issues are still there. So these are the challenges that we have in the coming days regarding the India-European Free Trade Agreement. Let us see a mains practice question. The question is, the India-European Union Free Trade Agreement marks a shift in India's trade diplomacy from protectionism to calibrated liberalization. Examine the economic and strategic significance of the agreement, highlighting its potential benefits and challenges for India. So it's a 15 marks question, and you have to write around 250 words. We have already discussed the answer for the question in the same pattern. So you can write the answer in the comment section, and we will review and we will prepare for your answer. Now it's time to move to the next article. Mind the time on the financial burden of India's aging population. The article is taken from The Hindu. So what is the news? So recently the Reserve Bank of India published a report which is talking about the uneven demographic dividend across the country. So the states like Kerala and Tamil Nadu will have 20 to 22% of elderly population by 2036 respectively. And states like Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and Jharkhand will have a working age population, and this working age population will continue to grow even after, as per the estimation, will continue to grow even after 2031. And states like Karnataka and Maharashtra, they are in a transitional stage where currently they are able to maintain the pressure created by maintain a balance between the pressure created by the aging population and the economic growth. So in this background, we are going to see how this aging population or how this demographic transition is affecting the economy, and what is the recommendation from the RBI and what is the limitation of the recommendation given by the RBI. First, we will start with the limitation of recommendation given by the RBI. So we have discussed all this, the report of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Bihar and all. So what is the recommendation from the RBI? So RBI, as per the recommendation, for the aging states, we have to focus more on subsidies and pension, managing the pension burden. And in the case of youthful states, we have to focus on more on human capital, investing the human capital, because they are calling it as a window of opportunity at the present. So what is the core limitation in this recommendation? Treating this demographic transition only as a physical challenge, undermining other areas like political economy, structural employment shift, and also the gender aging. So what are the issues in these aspects? So first we'll talk about the political economy. So we know that the 1970s population policy, right, which aimed to reduce the population of India. And if you take the result, the southern states, the southern parts of India successfully reduced the population, while the northern parts of India continued to experience high population even after the national population policy of 1970s. So what is the issue? So the southern states will face double disadvantage. The first is lower tax devolution. So the central government will always support states with a high population physically, right? While the states with less population will not be receiving that much tax devolution. And the second is the parliamentary representation, the concern about the parliamentary representation. So recently, when we talked about the delimitation, upcoming delimitation, the biggest concern was raised by the states of South India. So what is the result? So the states once successfully controlled the population is now may have a chance of facing physical stress in the upcoming days. So this is raising questions about the principles of cooperative federalism and equity. And youthful states, opportunity or trap. So what RBI calls the status of the Jharkhand, UP and Uttar Pradesh. So RBI is calling the status or the transition in the UP as a window of opportunity, because we have a very good working age population. But the ground reality is entirely different. The spending on the education is very less. Persisting employment crisis because of the dynamism, the change in the dynamism of the job market. So we have to address this, we have to focus on manufacturing automation, AI-led productivity and all. So this shift is, many people in the ground may not be having that much skill, or they may not be having that much literacy. So that is affecting them in the aspect of employment. They may not be able to cope with the present demand of the market. As a result, this will lead to employment crisis, even there is a working age population, good working age population, and also sometimes even with good economic growth. So therefore, to address this structural issue, we have to focus on manufacturing automation and at the same time AI-led productivity shift. Otherwise, this resource will not be able to be utilized properly. And coming to the gendered aging and social security gap. So one of the limitations in the RBI recommendation is undermining the problem of gendered aging. So if you take the problem of all men and women, that is entirely different. The society is based on patriarchal norms and all. So therefore, the women have their own social limitations in accessing property, owning assets and all. So therefore, the research found that the aging is disproportionately affects the men and women. So you can see that longer life expectancy but low asset ownership. So we have to focus not just on the pension and subsidy, we have to focus on creating asset for the old age population in the coming days. Then only we can ensure security for them. So RBI's workforce policy blind spot. So you can see that majority of the women are currently working in the informal sector, where they are not providing any pension. So if you take the case of the Delhi, recently we found that in the national capital there is a significant increase in the female literacy, but the employment rate, especially the employment rate of the women in the informal sector, is very high. Not in the formal sector, in the informal sector is very high. And we have done an article regarding this issue in the name of Delhi Paradox. You can check out the channel. So this such issues are there. So here also the problem is structural problem. That is a ground reality. Without addressing that, going directly for the pension and subsidy will not work. And at the same time, here also we need to focus in the sub areas like migration, the problems faced by the nuclear families. So what happens if the aging population is not owning sufficient asset, if they are not getting social security, then this aging population will become a dependent population, which may leads to burden, and also it will affect the rights of the old age population. And what can be done? How we can mold the policy to meet these demands? The first is bringing a new industrial policy to address the problem of structural issues in the employment market. There we have to focus on employment. At the same time, we have to focus on sustainable employment. Therefore, we have to focus on green energy, care economy, low labor absorbing services, and early investment by the youthful states, especially in the healthcare system and pension infrastructure, will be helpful for them when they experience the demographic transition, like falling birth rate and increasing old age population. And expansion of social pension scheme is very important. Public geriatric healthcare is very important, because addressing the demand, or addressing the needs of the old age men and women is equally important. Therefore, we have to focus on research and development. At the same time, we have to focus on bringing infrastructure which are specifically focusing on the old age population. Such issues can be brought under public geriatric healthcare, because at the same time we can see that treating old age people in the private sector, private hospitals, is really expensive, and because of that, many families in India may not be able to treat their old age population. So such issues has to be addressed, and currently we have the Ayushman Bharat initiative for that, to address such issues. And talking about the main practice question, the question is: India's demographic transition presents divergent challenges across states, exposing limits of one size fits all fiscal approach. Critically examine the RBI's recommendations on aging and youthful states in the context of federal equity, employment transition, and the social security. One size fits all. So from the discussion, we can clearly see that the RBI is focusing on two aspects. The first is focusing more on pension and subsidy in the terms of old age aging states, and for the youthful states, investing in the human capital. At the same time, we talked about what is the reality in the ground level. For example, in the youthful states, we have to focus in the human capital, but at the same time, we have to address the dynamism in the job market. Without addressing the dynamism in the job market, directly addressing the human capital will not work. And in the case of the gendered aging, we have to focus on both men and women. At the same time, we have to address the structural problems in the pension scheme, right? So these are the limitations of the RBS approach, that is a one size fits all. So using the hints, try to answer the question and post it in the comment section. It's a 15 marks question, and you have to write around 250 words. Write the answer and post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Now it's time to move to the next article. So coming to the prelims focus, the first topic is Household Consumption Expenditure Survey of 2023-24. So from the name itself, we can understand the objective, that is assessing the consumption and the expenditure of the households in India on goods and services. And the survey is conducted by the National Statistical Office, which is working under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And what are the objectives? Collecting information regarding the consumption and expenditure of households on goods and services. And this will provide, the survey will provide data record for assessing the trend in the economy. And this collected data can be also used for preparation of various reports and indexes, including the calculation of the consumer price index. And the next topic is the National Voters Day of 2026. So this National Voters Day of 2026 is observed on 25th January every year. And this year the theme is My India, My Vote. Why we are observing the Voters Day on 25th January? Because 25th January 1950 marked the establishment of Election Commission of India under Article 324 of the Indian Constitution. Through observing this day, what we are aiming for, what is the objective? The objective is to honor the voters, because we can see that when India got independence in the 1947, when we planned for the first election in 1950, the nations across the world literally told that this attempt will fail, because majority of the Indian population were not literate. But we overcame such social barriers and we successfully laid the foundation for a strong democratic country of the modern world through the first election. So therefore, we have to honor the early voters of India. And this day will also encourage the youth participation. It will propagate the democratic values upheld by India, and it will also promote the principle of universal adult suffrage. And the next topic is National Army Day of 2026. So it is observed annually on 15th January, and this year the theme is Year of Networking and Data Centricity, which is addressing the digital transformation happening within the Indian Army. Why we are observing the National Army Day on 15th January every year? Because this day marks the transfer of power from the General Francis Booker, the last British Commander-in-Chief, to the Field Marshal Kodandra M. Cariappa, the first Indian Commander-in-Chief. So this transfer of power is the significance of this day, and that is why we are observing the National Army Day on 15th January every year. So coming to the prelims practice question, the question is, with reference to the household consumption expenditure survey of 2023-24, consider the following statements. Statement 1, it is conducted by the National Statistical Office under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Statement 2, the survey provides data used for estimating poverty, inequality, consumption patterns in India. So we can see that it is conducted by the National Statistical Office of India, and this office is working under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So the statement 1 is correct, and the data that we collected through the survey can be used for assessing poverty, inequality, and also the consumption trend in India. Therefore, the statement 2 is also correct. So both statements are correct. So the correct answer will be option C, both 1 and 2. So with this, we are coming to the conclusion for the prelims focus. With this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's current affair analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time updates from the academy. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to me. Have a nice day.